All right.
Hey,
This is the predator panel. Y'all may have seen the pig panel. Same thing kind of goes. This is for audience participation, your question and answers. As I said, we have some of the biggest names in the predator hunting industry. As I said, some of the best. I'll take that back later.
Ask all the tough questions to Gerald Stewart.
Yeah. But again, we appreciate everybody being here. This is an interactive panel, so we'll get you a microphone down here. Just make sure you speak real clearly in the microphone. We are recording this, and we think the audio system will be much better for this particular panel, so since we all have handhelds. So we're going to start off on the end over here. I'm just going to give just a quick introduction, and feel free to direct your questions to all these good guys here, and I appreciate y'all coming. Over here on the far left, we got Jeff Thomason with Predator Pursuit. We have Steve Criner, Dog Soldier TV, Al Morris, Fox Pro, Cal Ferguson, Predator Instinct, Todd Woodall, Predator Instinct, Gerald Stewart, we're going to say Hunter Specialty, and Johnny Stewart, Game Calls. Byron South coming to the call. We have Glenn Guest with Hog Zombies, but he'll be a Predator Zombie for this particular panel. And we have Clint Ferguson with Predator Instinct. So we're going to start off on the far left over there with Jeff. I noticed, Jeff, in a couple of write-ups, we see now that you're going after a few alligators now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. You're not just doing predator hunting, you're doing a little, even though a gator's a big predator, it's also a big lizard. Tell us about that.
That's it. This year I decided to do something a little bit different, go after all different kinds of predators. We did bears and alligators, and alligator was something I was totally not familiar with, never done it, never been around them, didn't know what to expect. And I got hooked up with some guys in South Carolina. They're actual exterminators. They go out, take care of the alligators, and they knew what they were doing. I trusted them. They showed me what to do, and it was really one of the most fun hunts I did all year. We went out. My goal was to go out and actually call the alligators in. You see it a lot where the guys are hooking them and doing that sort of thing, but I wanted to actually go out, call them in, and, you know, I didn't know anything about it. You know, I'm used to doing the coyotes and that sort of thing, so it was a challenge, but we got after them and made it work, got them in, shot them with a bow, and turned out to be really good. Fun trip.
Nice gator, too, I must add.
We did. We got a couple. It was great.
Yeah, good deal. Steve Criner, tell us a little bit about what you have coming up here in the near future and what you're all about now.
Well, I don't know. I'll have to think about it in a minute. I just kind of make up stuff as I go.
That's fine.
No, that's kind of what the show's about. I do Predator television for a living. There's a few of us up here that do it for a sole living, and you kind of just got to fly by the seat of your pants sometimes. You know, we shoot some hogs, we catch some hogs. I tell you what, I'm really digging the hog thing right now. The very first hog I ever had bait in my life got me down. It wore me out a little bit. And I was talking to Byron South, he's down there. I was talking to him the other day, and I said, I used to fight bulls, and Byron used to ride bulls. I would take a hooking from a bull any day than be under a hog again. But it just keeps you going, and that's what I like to do with my television production. We use good professional producers. We got good professional editors. And I want to take you into the inside, and I want to give you that fire and that drive, what I feel, whether, you know, Jeff done an awesome gator segment. It's already aired. I seen it. It's killer. We done some gators. We done hogs, coyotes. We're going noodling this summer. Gator 911, we're going to go down and we're going to catch some live gators because I want to take my little girls down there. My little girls love alligators too. So we're just having fun, and that's kind of what I'm about. I just want to have fun and do what I love, and I want you guys to enjoy watching it.
Good deal. How about you, Big Al? We heard you toot your horn earlier. Great presentation a while ago. We kind of had us all on the edge of our seats wondering if that coyote was going to go down or was going to stand there. Not a very smart coyote, but go ahead.
Don't you think his head swelled up enough?
Like I say, I gotta do everything I can for my sponsors, though.
No, that's, you know, that whole deal is trying to be about having fun for us. Fur Takers is, we're trying to go to every state that's got coyotes and show people that they can hunt coyotes in their backyard. And hopefully we can show you how to use some of the techniques that, Mike and Abner specialize in the East mostly, and they brought me on specializing in the West. And we're just trying to show people that they can go anywhere in this great nation, from Florida to New York, California, Oregon, Washington, points in between, Kansas, Missouri, places like that, and show everybody that we can show we show everybody how to kill stuff in their backyard. And what I love most about predator calling is you never know exactly what you're going to call in. You can call in coyotes, you can call in bobcats, foxes. Every now and then you get a big cat or a bear, something special, something that you remember. And it's those memorable call-ins, those animals that did something special. One of my favorite call-ins for me and Garvin was a coyote brought in a big old leg bone of a cow, and you never know what you're going to call in, how it's going to come in, and that's what Fur Takers is about, is taking people across the country, showing them they can call coyotes in their backyard.
Good deal. How about you, Cal? Tell us a little bit about what you guys got going on.
Well, hello. We just kind of decided to regroup this last year and do things a little different, and loosen up a little bit, be a little more lighthearted, and just get out and have fun, goof off a lot, show our true personalities, and not be the. We want to try and teach people stuff, but not trying to act like the experts, and that's pretty much what we've done. We've had episodes this year where some of our worst hunts were the most fun we had all year long. Goofing off, giving each other a hard time, cutting up, and just keeping it light, keeping it fun, even if one of us screwed up or things weren't going our way. Why
are you looking at me?
We just decided early on that no matter what, we were just going to just roll with the punches and have a good time this year, and it's been fun, and included our families a lot in the episodes again this year, and that's really important to all of us, and a lot of why we started Predator Instinct TV.
Thank you very much. How about you, Todd?
Well, hello. Obviously, my thoughts are going to pretty much mimic Cal's because we're part of the same program, have the same ideas. But I agree with him. It's we decided to kind of go back to our roots and really concentrate on coyotes and just having fun. Brought Clint on this last year, and tell you what really kind of lit a spark. I mean, first time I've ever seen a Chinese fire drill in the middle of a hunting scenario. You just never know. But it's been fun, and like Cal said, just trying not to take ourselves too serious. I mean, after you do this for a while, you get to know what works for you, and it's really easy to get mad when something doesn't go right, and we've all been guilty of it. But we've just been trying to be lighthearted and have fun and just roll with it, and it's been a blast.
Good deal. Mr. Gerald Stewart, tell us in 15 seconds, tell me how your life's been changed by this industry. We're on a short time frame here, but if you can take it from the top.
15 seconds.
You must not know me very well.
Never happened.
That means 15 seconds means actually a minute and a half.
I have viewed this industry from a unique perspective, having been 8 years old when Dad started our company. And I was the most popular kid at show and tell time in elementary school because Dad was always bringing something home that I could show and tell about. Everything from wildlife to artifacts to arrowheads, all kinds of stuff. And I've just watched the industry go from the basics to the sophisticated. And I've made the comment at this show a number of times to people that I would have never guessed that the people would see game callers go to $600 and $800 for a game caller. We had people complain that our game callers at $219 or $229 were too expensive. But now it looks like everybody's got to have one of each, so they buy almost every brand out there. That just dumbfounds me to see it go to that. But I think that's a testimony to the rise in the interest of our sport, and it's been a very interesting transition for me to watch.
Thank you very much. For y'all that have not been by the Hunter Specialty booth, Johnny Stewart booth, there's some really, really unique artifacts over there that Gerald brought in to share with us. I was really amazed at some of these products and how You know, the digital sound and the circuitry has changed. When these guys were using the big dish to bring in wildlife sounds in the wild and put those and record them on reel to reel, it's just phenomenal how life has changed, you know, the hunting world and how things are done in this modern age. But if you get a chance, go by there. He's got a little mini museum that shows some of the innovation of where Johnny Stewart started in some of the little, I mean, I'm talking about little 45 RPM sitting on a little small box.
Half your audience just said, "What is a 45 RPM?"
That's true. Yeah, I can only imagine. But it's really something that he'll spend some time and share with you some of this stuff. Really cool. Thank you, Gerald. Got Byron South with Coming to the Call. You've probably seen him on Mojo Outdoors. Seen him on a lot of TV. His DVD series has been overwhelming and done really well. Take it on.
Well, can you hear me?
Hang on. Got a dead mic over here, fellas.
Hello, hello. Like he said, Coming to the Call, I started that about, I guess, 12 years ago. And my premise to do it, I love to hunt coyotes, always have. And at that time, there really wasn't a whole lot out there. I think Randy Anderson had his first DVD out. And so I saw that and I thought, man, that looks like a lot of fun. Can y'all hear me now? So I really didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do. I just wanted, a lot of guys told me, said, you need to get what you do on film. So I did that and actually picked it up. Back then it was VHS tapes and didn't have a clue what I was doing. Just loved to hunt coyotes. So put it on, made a VHS tape, and Cabela's and all those stores picked it up. And so overnight, people thought I was just an expert, and I started giving seminars around, and I tell people, look, I'm not an expert. This predator hunting is really not, people make it more difficult than it really needs to be. And I used to tell guys at my seminars all the time that the biggest thing that you're going to learn from my seminars, it doesn't take a genius to do it. You're going, after the seminar, you're going to think, hey, if that booger picker can do it, I can too. So that's what I've tried to do on my DVDs, to just show you it's not really that difficult. We just do the basics and do it over and over and over again. And through that, I got a lot of sponsors and stuff, Mojo, which was one. And over the last 3 years, I've helped Mojo develop some products, and we've been all over the world filming the TV show called Lions in Africa, Jackals, Hyenas, Bears in Alaska, and Canada, and coyotes in August. I don't know how many states, but it's been a really, really good experience. It's been a lot of fun, and you can go over and look at the Double Trouble collar. That was one of the collars that we developed, and along with some other products. But that's basically it in a nutshell what I've done. So,
good deal. Thank you very much. Glenn Guess, Hog Zombies. He don't just kill hogs; he kills a lot of predators. I've actually seen him on Predator Pursuit. I've seen him. I know you're pretty well tied in with Byron, and I've seen you on several of these guys' episodes. Tell us a little bit about how you come with these guys, and I think y'all are somewhat neighbors and friends from a ways back too.
Well, I knew Gerald before anybody else.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm not gonna hold it against you.
Well, a man introduced me to predator hunting when I was about 15 years old. Very first calls I ever used were Johnny Stewart calls, jackrabbit, long-range jackrabbit distress, and a close-range call. And back then, we went out, climbed up in a tree, and called till we heard something, and then turned on the light. Of course, there wasn't nothing there. And eventually, I did get to kill a coyote, though, and it kind of fueled my fire, and I just enjoyed doing it, and my whole family does it. My wife and my kids do it, and I didn't know there was such a thing as a predator hunting industry, and got on the internet and met Byron, and I've hunted with a lot of these guys, and calling predators fueled my fire to call everything else. I like calling turkeys, ducks, deer, hogs, and I've really worked the last 20 years trying to figure out hog vocalizations and getting them to call, so I kind of got away from predators a little bit. But, it's still a lot of fun. I like visiting with all these guys and going around listening to them. And you can visit with everybody at their booths, and I guarantee you there's some major dramatization of reality going on. We're not going to call it lying.
Well, I do know that you keep your family involved in hunting. You had some kill shots on YouTube that's got your wife killing hogs, killing turkeys, your kids killing nice bucks. I mean, hogs. Y'all just keep it all in the family.
While I was up here doing the pig panel earlier, my wife texted me while I was sitting here on stage trying to get a phone number so her and my daughter could go hog hunting.
Gotta love that.
So I'm out trying to pay the bills, and they're out having fun.
I hear you. Well, good deal.
Actually, Michelle should probably be up here answering the question. She probably knows a little bit more about it than Glenn does.
Well, it's always good to see everybody come together as a family, and that means a lot to me. I've got 4 kids. You got 5, and trying to keep my kids out in the field, and it's awesome. I appreciate you being up here. How about you, Clint? Tell me how you kind of ended up in the picture here.
Well, basically the reason I got in is there was somebody that needed to carry all Todd's bullets, and Cal needed help in and out of the truck, so they asked me to go with them. Not really. They're a great group of guys. They have fun. Their kids go all the time. That's the reason I do it. I can remember growing up, being 8 years old, and the first thing that I got to go hunting with my dad was coyotes. And it's a low cost. I mean, you can get in the market, you can go. It's not like deer hunting and everything else. And it's a great way to get out and teach the kids. And when these 2 guys asked me to go along, I'm in it. I mean, me and my kids go every night of the week, and it's a blast. You know, it'll teach your kids responsibilities. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old that, you know, they run around with guns at my house. I trust them like grown-ups. I mean, it's just a different responsibility. Other people's kids come to my house, and you can just tell, you know, how the kids are raised and what they're raised around. It's a great thing to keep them out and keep them going. And, you know, for us, the show's evolving. The kids will be in it more next year, just showing, you know, all the techniques of, you know, how you get the kids started, how you get them set up. And it takes a lot of time, you know, to get them out there and get them going. But in the end, it's all worth it. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. Before we get going here, does anybody have any questions for these guys? Anything at all? Is anybody here just hog hunters, predator hunters, both? I know y'all probably do a little bit of all hunting, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Anybody? Direct your questions to these guys, or I'll keep moderating and I'll try to pull some of your ideas out of their heads. But I would like to have some people give them a run for their money and ask them a few questions. How about you, Randy? You got anything? Is there anything you could ask?
He's a Cajun.
We're not going to hold that against him either. Byron, what does a coyote taste like?
They're pretty good and chili.
Good and chili.
Come over, I'll get you some, Randy.
All right. One question I have, you know, I'm from Georgia. If you couldn't tell that, we're kind of like folks from Texas. We don't have as many. Well, we do have less teeth, most of us. But one question I do have is, and this could be any of you guys, how long do you guys let your call run? What kind of sequence do you prefer? And I know, like Al said, it could be a snowshoe hare in California or anything. And when they're hungry, they're going to come to it. But I'm going to ask you, Jeff, how long do you let your caller run, or how long do you sit on a stand before you relocate?
Normally, you know, it just depends. When I get there and I look at a place and I think, there's got to be something here. You know, I may sit there 20, 25 minutes, but I'm pretty impatient. I'll sit there, and if something hadn't shown up in the first 10 or so, I'm looking to leave. I'm already thinking about the next stand, you know. I'm wondering where I'm going next. But, you know, I'll let the call, as far as call sequence goes, it's like you said, I think Byron said, some people, they make it a little too complicated. They try to overthink things. And these animals aren't thinking like that. They're hearing something in trouble, and they're wanting to go check it out. And like you said, I've called in jackals in Africa with a snowshoe. It's like he was saying, don't put too much thought into it. You know, you can go out and get a $6 hand call and call in coyotes, or you can get the $600 Fox Pro and call in coyotes. I'm getting kind of lazy. I like to set the Fox Pro out, use the remote. That's the way I do it most of the time now, but I'll let it run. May mess with the volume a little bit. Something hadn't shown in a couple minutes, I may flip from a rabbit to a pup in distress and then back to another rabbit. Just kind of play around, see what works. You know, you never know what it's going to take to trigger that coyote to respond. I mean, I've sat on a stand before for 15 minutes and nothing showed, and flipped to something else, and a minute later, there he was. So you're not going to mess anything up. I know when I started, I was a little nervous to change sounds, thinking I was going to mess something up. But more times than not, I think it benefits you more than it's going to hurt you.
Good deal. Thank you. Steve, I know you and I had a conversation over several phone calls. You got into hog hunting, and it's been a big part of your pleasure now, not just predators. You got into this hog thing pretty good. I think one of the most unique things, and the reason we combined hogs with this event, and especially where I'm from, and it's definitely the same here in Texas, there's a lot of sensible game laws here where you can hunt predators at night, hogs at night, no unlimited bag limits, night hunting opportunities. So we have really good similar laws, and like I said, sensible laws, and they somewhat, even though their behavior and all is totally different, they kind of intersect, and by virtue of having these same type laws, it opens up the night hunting opportunity, and you can hunt anytime, 24 hours a day at night. Any kind of firearm is welcome. A guy can go out here and shoot a coyote with a deer rifle. They don't have to invest in anything fancy. What is your take on that?
Well, you know, that's the good thing about predator hunting. You know, I consider a hog a predator. They're pretty rough on stuff, but there's so many, I guess you could say, loose laws. You can go all over the country. You can hunt just about anything with teeth, unless it's a big game animal like, you know, bears and lions and stuff like that. There's a lot of states also that offer places you can hunt that you don't have to buy tags. Arkansas, for instance, you know, I've got into this hog thing, and I am not a hog expert. I love killing hogs, but I really love catching hogs. And, you know, down in Arkansas, you don't have to buy a hunting license unless you're packing a gun. And I got my pocket knife in my hands. So, you know, there's all kinds of opportunities in this arena. And that's why I think I focus on this part of the industry, is because it's so awesome. You know, I don't just got to wait on the rut, or I don't got to wait on that, you know, bow season open so I can go sit on that alfalfa field when it's 90 degrees outside. I just go hunt. That's what I like about it.
Good deal. Thank you. One question I have is, being from Texas, what is, I'm gonna ask Todd this. What when you go to a stand, what do you use as far as your first call right out of the bag? What is something that you know is the first thing you'll throw out there to a coyote? What is the first sound that you would use?
You talking to me?
Yes, sir.
We're going out of order. You confuse me. I was sleeping. First rattle out of the box. Obviously, for us, we try to keep it simple, just like everybody else said. Usually rabbit sounds. Cottontail, we like to start off with something a little higher pitched. Start off with a little bit lower volume. Work your way up, and kind of work your way up from there. Change sounds every now and then. Every 5 minutes or so, change sounds. We never leave a sound without playing Pup Distress, Baby Cottontail, something like that. But really, we stick with the rabbits till the rabbits don't work. If they stop working, we'll start changing gears, and that works too. But man, first right out of the box, it's hard not to hit the snowshoe HP or something like that and cast your biggest net you got.
Good deal. Byron, for you, what on a hunt, what would be a how many stands can you knock out in a hunt, and how long do you sit on a stand? If you go out predator hunting, are you going to try to hit 2 stands, or are you going to try to hit 8 stands? What would be a good amount of stands to reap the benefits of hopefully getting a predator?
Well, for me, it's kind of like a numbers game. If I'm gonna hunt all day or next 2 or 3 days, I'll try to map it out where I can get it in as many stands as I can, because that just ups my odds of being able to kill a coyote. Yeah, this mic's not working. Anyway, so what I'll do is I'll just check the wind, you know, and able to get. Sometimes I've made as many as 15 stands in a day. But what I'll do is I'll check the wind. I kind of watch the weather. You know, your iPhones and stuff are neat because you can figure out what the weather's going to do the next day, and I'll get my map out and figure out, well, I need to hit, you know, this place. That way you're not jumping from here way over there, then coming back. So I've kind of got it in my head which way the wind's going to blow and which way I'm going to head that next morning. That way I can get that many more stands in. But to answer your question, I'll set a stand about 15, 20 minutes at the most, and I know my odds are going to go way down after about 10 or 15 minutes kill anything. So I'm gonna move to another. Like if you're gambling, and you know 85% of the time you're going to call in a code in the first 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, and your odds go down to 15%. If you were gambling, you'd get up from that table and go to another table. So that's what I do, is I try to get in as many stands as I can where I'm sitting at that 85% table as long as I can all day long. And to do that, you got to map it out and kind of have a plan. And I think that's where a lot of guys kind of fail, is they just kind of willy-nilly go out there without a plan. And I like to tell people, you know, you set the stage, you decide when it happens. You're the one that's controlling this deal with that call. So just kind of think it out. It's not complicated, but have a plan ahead of time, and you get 15 stands in.
Good deal.
Ken, at the World Championships, me and Garvin make 22 to 25 stands during daylight hours.
That's humping it.
You've got to
That's
cook.
work.
You've got to. You can't spend, if you spend 15 minutes driving and then you spend 10 minutes walking into a stand, you got to walk 10 minutes back out. You're not going to get 22 to 25 stands in a day. If you don't get 22 to 25 stands in a day, you're not going to win that World Coyote Calling Championship. Wherever it is, I don't care whether it's in Elko, Nevada, Williams, Arizona, Cortez, Colorado, or Belen, New Mexico, it travels to 4 different states, and it's all, that's my background, is making lots of stands, grind. It's not, you know, Byron told me, this is not my cup of tea.
It's not. Them guys always try to get me to hunt the contest, and God bless them for doing it. It's a lot of fun. I hunted it one time, but the idea of making 25 stands a day, that's work.
But it's running and gunning, and sometimes you don't have that option. Some guys just want to go hunt their uncle's place, and their uncle's place may only be 400 acres. Well, you're only going to get 1, maybe 2 stands on your uncle's place. So I will stay a lot longer. You know, if you got more people, stay there longer. It's not about running and gunning sometimes. It's about maximizing the potential on what you're trying to accomplish.
That's exactly what I was fixing to say when you said that. The first coyotes I ever called up in my life was about 15 miles away from here in Mount Com, Texas. And I grew up hunting with my dad, and we didn't know what we were doing. There wasn't any information out there. My dad has a set of lungs on him, like a 55-gallon drum, I think, and he would scare me to death with that predator call. And anyway, I always did just like he did. And I went out there one day and called for 15 minutes, just like I had read somewhere. And I started thinking, man, that didn't sound good at all. It's just too loud, and I don't know. I just sat there squeaking and just practicing. I was done hunting. I was just practicing. And started squeaking and doing different high-pitched sounds, and looked up, and 2 coyotes were standing in front of me. But it's probably 45 minutes into the stand. And it's one of those places you get 1 or 2 spots. So if that's what you got, sit there for an hour. You ain't got nothing to lose. You ain't got nowhere else to go. Sit there for a while. But most of us have a lot of country and can cover a bunch of ground, and 10, 15 minutes is about the norm usually.
Good deal.
Ken, when I started hunting with Alan Garv about 6 years ago, man, I was like, these guys are freaking nuts, you know. But I was wired 220 anyway, so I got to fitting in real good. But now I cannot stand it. I mean, it kills me to sit on a stand for 20 minutes. And hunting bobcats is the only time you can talk me into say. I mean, if I'm in good cat country, I'll stay hooked. But I'm a numbers guy, and you know, I've not won the world championships. Dang sure haven't done it 3 times like Al. But I've hunted it quite a bit, and I've hunted other contests, and I fit in really well there because I get to make really quick 12 to 15-minute stands, then I'm gone. And I carry that actually over into my daily life as a predator hunter. I got Sasquatch. He's down here on the front row, my camera guy and producer. He's a little guy, so he fits in good. He can keep up. But some of them I wear out pretty bad because it's a numbers game. More stands equals more coyotes, and that's you know, if you're on a 45-minute routine, you're just not going to get a call to very many sets of ears. And especially, I'm from Missouri, so I got to make a lot of stands. And you know, more ears that your sound can fall upon, the more ears you get to cut off at the end of the day.
Blessing in my life was getting to hunt with different people that I have been able to get to hunt with. Gerald brought me down. My first Texas hunting experience was with Gerald down here, and we were hunting on a ranch that had zillions of coyotes and they never got called. Well, the first stand, we see one circling way out there. Remember that? And Gerald goes, they haven't called this ranch. He'd heard that before, you know. And it was just fun. It's been fun to travel the country. And I haven't hunted with most of the guys up here. I've hunted with 3 of them. And it's just fun to travel different parts of the country and see how Gerald approached his setups and how Steve approached his setups. And it's just awesome to see how we're all doing the same thing, but we all tweaked it to our own degree. And it just, I behoove all of you, find a friend, find somebody that's in your circle of friends or that you know that coyote hunts, go with them. I've learned so much from, I got to hunt with Randy Watson for the first time last night, and it's just awesome to get to go on different hunts and hunt with these guys up here.
I'm going to interject something here so you won't wonder why you asked me up here. I think there's a formula used at every calling stand you make, and that formula is influenced by a lot of variables, and that formula changes from one stand to the next. Some of those variables are weather and terrain and foliage and all those kinds of things. What am I calling? What am I choosing to call with? But I think a significant factor that factors into that formula is your personality, your likes and your dislikes. I don't want to make 23 stands a day. Physically, I don't want to put out that kind of effort. Al and Garvin do in the contest because they're trying to win some money. And I respect them for making that many stands a day. The most stands I've ever made in a day is about 16. And that won't win a contest unless I'm in a honey hole of a piece of country and the coyotes are just running wild. But that formula changes. What's your intent? What's your goal? What's your desire at that stand? What do you want to call up? What do you want to do with it when it gets there? Are you photographing that animal or are you killing that animal? Are you killing it for predator control or are you killing it for a hide because you want a coyote rug for your kid to put his feet on the first thing every morning when he gets out of bed? All of that determines that formula. And those variables change because of your formula that you've got put together in your mind.
Gerald, how many owls did your daddy pride himself on calling to the same? That's loud. How many owls did your dad pride himself on calling to the same perch in a night?
3.
He'd get three different species.
3 different species.
And that was it was great joy to your dad to get to show people that he could call 3 different species of owls to the same perch. I think that's cool. That's what calling's about.
Absolutely. Al said something about the other day or earlier about you never know what's going to show up too. I mean, that's when you're picking your stands. A lot of times, and we're talking about all the stands we do. When you pick your stands, sometimes you think a coyote's going to show up, a bobcat shows up, and sometimes you think a bobcat ought to show up, and a coyote runs over you. But he's talking about calling all those different owls in. I called a bobcat, a fox, and a coyote on the same stand one time. Never done that before. May never do it again. But a point there that I'd like to make is when you shoot a coyote, don't just get up and think nothing else is coming. Just continue to call, especially if it's just a minute or 2 into the stand, because they don't know what a gunshot is, and just keep calling. And I'll almost always give every stand about 15 or 20 minutes. But I'm kind of like these other guys. I can't sit there. It's hard for me to sit there 20 minutes.
Al touched on it, and Gerald touched on it too. Your hunting style needs to fit your personality. You can ask any of these guys that's hunted with me. I'm like a 3-year-old kid on the stand. I'm doing this the whole time I'm sitting there. If I sit there 15 minutes, there better be something coming. If you're patient enough to sit there for 30 minutes or an hour and a half, sooner or later a coyote liable to come by and hear it and come on in, but I ain't that patient. And my wife didn't hunt when we got married at all, and I hunted every day. I mean, if I wasn't coon hunting, I was hog hunting or deer hunting or coyote hunting. I hunted every single day. And I wanted her to share that passion with me, and now I know that was a mistake. But anyway, I had her and 5 kids, and anybody that's ever hunted with a 3-year-old kid, 5 minutes is an hour and a half to them. So my hunting style developed around that, and like I say, deer hunting, turkey hunting, hog hunting, predator hunting. I want that animal to get there as quick as it can so I can either kill it or not kill it and move on to the next spot. And over the years, taking my wife and my kids, I had to make those stands be productive quick and move on, or not be productive quick and move on to the next stand. So 15 minutes is about max for me, unless I'm seeing a lot of deer activity and I'm hunting a big buck and trying to rattle one in. I might sit there 30 minutes. If I know this country's just eat up with bobcats and I'm sitting in the best spot and everything's perfect, I may sit there 30 minutes, but I ain't gonna do it willingly.
I hear you. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I've having 4 kids, I can almost tell you before I bring my gun, when I take my kids hunting, I got to have M&Ms, I got to have a juice box, I got to have Cokes, peanuts, and everything else. So you're right, though. You're absolutely right. Kids have a very short attention span when it comes to sitting on the stand.
What do your kids eat? What do your kids eat?
Yeah. Well, you know, and the main goal for taking the kids is for them to enjoy it and to be interested in it. And if your kid can sit there for 30 minutes and be happy looking for an animal, that's fine. But if in 5 or 10 minutes you say, they're ready to do something else, Dad, there ain't nothing. My son's the world's worst. He's more impatient than me. And Dad, let's there's nothing coming. Let's move to another spot. Okay, give them 5 more minutes. Maybe 10 minutes later, then you move. But the main goal is to get them hooked on it. And if they're sitting there freezing their tail off for 2 hours, they ain't going to want to go hunting. They're going to want to sit at home and play video games.
Oh, yeah.
But if they go out and they see anything, whether they get to shoot it or not, they're usually happy and then move on. A friend of mine's got a little 6-year-old girl that's hunting with us some now. She can't sit still for 2 minutes. And we just try to keep it interesting for her. And we ain't killed nothing yet when she's been with us, but she's having fun.
Well, that's what's important, because as soon as you fuss at them and tell them to be still for the 100th time, that takes all the fun out of it.
I would tell my kids, as small as they are, just keep moving like that, and kind of like a little rabbit in distress, and make a great decoy. That coyote's gonna run right here. Boy, they'll lock up then. Well, he's right. You got to keep it interesting. If you burn them out and they're not seeing anything, they don't want to go, and you've lost a hunter there. So. And
they're the future. Without them, we're not going to have a sport. And a lot of people say, well, if you don't quit moving, we're not going to see a coyote. Hey, who cares? If that coyote's coming, most of the time them kids will get still. But if you can't see him coming, it don't matter.
Come on, folks. This is your chance to ask Jeff what his favorite Mako shark question or spade is.
I think we got a question right here.
Get her a mic.
Yeah.
Get her a mic.
I appreciate your bravery.
Okay, my dad has hunted since I was a baby, and his philosophy is if you call in a crow or a hawk, it's over. And also, my second question is, how many of y'all use cover scent when you're calling?
I can hit on the hawk and crow thing. I love it when I call in hawks and crows. To me, that's making it seem a whole lot more realistic. I mean, those predators are looking around and they can see these birds talking, and they think something's going on. And a lot of times when we do call in a crow or a hawk, you pay attention to them, they'll let you know there's a coyote coming, or they'll let you know there's a cat coming. They'll swoop down, and I mean they're attacking them the whole way in. They're the best thing, you know. They'll let you know.
And you said your daddy said that? Okay, I think that is probably accurate, but you hear about the golden years of predator hunting, where Squeaky Breaks in Texas calls in coyotes. I've never seen that. And so we like crows now coming in. I remember Al, the first time I went to Arizona with him, he said, there comes a tornado. I said, where? Well, it's a bunch of ravens, you know. Well, in Arizona, there are ravens in the air and there are crows on the dirt. But anyway, the ravens were coming. He says, there's a coyote underneath them. They're swarming, you know. And here comes a coyote. I think it has changed because I have noticed a change in coyote calling. I called my first coyote when I was 16, and I'm 33 now, and I've noticed a big change in just 17 years or so. And, you know, Byron's been hunting a long time, Al, and all these guys have all hunted long enough to notice a change. But Gerald, he's pretty old, so he probably, you know.
Dinosaur.
He probably notices and not no disrespect about the old part, but he probably notices a real big change in how coyotes act. I know that that 3 years ago back home in Missouri, I could howl and I was killing stuff. I mean, I was hammering down. And now I'm having to step out of the box even in the Midwest a little more than I did 3 or 4 years ago. And I think with the birds, it's the same way. You know, back then it was probably a competition thing. A crow ain't afraid to bop a coyote on the head. But now it's more of a security issue. I incorporate crow sounds. I guarantee you on 80% of my stands, crow sounds, if I'm using electronics. And what that's telling everybody is like, hey, the crows are there, we're good.
Excellent. That was a great question. Sir, what do you have?
The reason she asked that over the last 30 years is that we call it, seems like every time we call it crow, it stays real high. They'll like a tree over there and call for 2 or 3 times and fly off. Kind of like warning everything around you that, hey, something's not right.
You got to be super still. They will pick you off quicker than anything out there. They will see you from half a mile away. And if they do, I mean, not much you can do about it, but a lot of times as they're coming in, they're going to intersect that coyote or cat and see it before they ever see you, and their focus is on that now, and that's when they're telling you he's there. You know, they're just swooping, and I mean, they're a great thing to call in.
Everything's connected out there. The coyotes are connected to the birds, the bird life. You know, they feed off each other all the time. I heard it said not every coyote or not every magpie has a or not every coyote has a not every magpie has a coyote, but every coyote has a magpie or a bird that'll follow it around out west. Just everything's connected. And an old Indian friend of mine said, that horse don't speak English, kick him in the gut. You know, it's the same thing. I don't think they speak the same language, but they all understand what the other one's trying to tell you. And the more woodsmanship you show, the more you can sneak into an area, the more you can feed into that ecosystem, the more we can, the subtle communications that are going on out there, if you can become part of that, understand it, fit into it, and work with it instead of against it. And it's hard to explain, but it's part of the deal.
Regarding your question about cover scent,
Cover scent. She asked about cover scent.
Yeah, who asked about the cover? You asked
She
about
did.
cover scent? Yeah.
I used to joke. Everybody knows me. Knows I like Copenhagen, and so everybody asked me what I use for cover scent. Basically, diesel, brake free, and Copenhagen. And that's just a joke to kind of make a point. I really don't use any cover scent, and I'm not against. I mean, guys that used it are convinced about it. But the best cover scent, I always try to get the wind in my favor. If he does not get downwind to you, there's absolutely no way that coyote, deer, whatever you're hunting, can smell you. So, and I've tried to use all kinds of stuff. None of it's really been effective for me. And I think a lot of people use it as a crutch, thinking that they can get by without using the wind to their favor if they've got that cover scent on. And I think that really defeats a lot of guys and gets them frustrated. I go out there with no kind of cover scent whatsoever. I like to bathe regularly, and I like my hunting partners to bathe regularly. But I always try to keep that wind in my favor. A lot of guys will tell you that coyotes will always circle downwind. That is that is far from the truth. And somebody asked a question, I think he did, about how long we leave the call playing. I think that's important. I leave that call playing constant, and a lot of times that coyote, if he circles, he's way closer. But I like to never get anything downwind of me. And sometimes, now that doesn't mean I always call the wind in my face. Sometimes I'll call the wind at my back, because especially in a big wind, I'll call into a place, but I'll leave something open out here where my scent's going, where I can see because a lot of times that coyote's going to end up downwind of you. But,
the cover scent thing, we've made a lot of enemies and had some heated debates over cover scent. And a coyote is basically a wild drug dog. And drug dog can smell a package of drugs in a gas tank full of gas. But that coyote's spending every single day of his life trying to keep his skin attached. He wants to live, he wants to eat, and he wants to have fun. But you can't, everybody says, oh, well, you can't kill a coyote unless you're doing this or unless you're doing that. And if you'll use this cover scent, you can trick all these coyotes. I raised hounds for years. And I'd get the 2 best nosed hounds I had, male and female, raise a litter of pups, and there'd be 6 or 7 pups in that litter, and there'd be one that could smell a coon that walked across this stage 2 weeks ago and one that couldn't smell him if he walked across it 2 minutes ago. So you got to take into consideration that not all those coyotes smell the same thing. And not all of them have the brain capacity to interpret it the same. Some of them interpret human sin as danger and some of them don't. You know, coyotes cross, you got to get pretty far out of the state of Texas to find a coyote that hadn't crossed a human scent all day long. He's crossed somebody's scent. You know, we got oil field traffic, we got farmers, we got, you know, people walking their dogs, whatever. Sometime during that day, nearly every coyote in the state of Texas has smelled a human, unless you get out around Mentone, maybe.
We have a lot of taste great, less filling arguments in this industry, and cover scent is one of them. I'll just give you a little bit of background on my association with the hunter specialties people and cover scents. I was not a big believer in that when I came on with the company, and I specifically had it written into my contract. I did not promote or advocate products that I didn't personally use myself. And I stayed away from that for a long time, and for the most part I still do. But I did learn in that process, anytime you can do something to minimize the human odor, you're benefiting yourself. I'll go back to that formula I talked about a while ago, your personal preferences. To what degree do you want to go to get that coyote? There are guys that would do anything to get that coyote. I tend to be sometimes a lazy hunter. I know Al will disagree with that. Al's perspective on me was that he was amazed that I was so meticulous at some stands and was particular about where we sat and how we got in and all that kind of stuff. His personal approach and formula is different than mine. He's a run and gun caller, probably based on his experience in the contests that he's won and done so well at. Whereas I grew up with Johnny Stewart, who filmed everything, and that's a different effort. It takes different preparation, it takes different scouting, it takes a lot of setup time. So I don't mind taking my time getting into a stand where somebody like Al or somebody else hunting in a contest, they want to run and gun, get in there fast. I'm particular enough, I go out and scout for the bush I want to sit by at a place, not just the general area. And getting back to the cover scent argument or discussion, tastes great, less filling. You know, half of us will be standing up and shouting something else. The hunter specialties guys, they're tree stand hunters in deer country. They wanted me to take all of their cover scent materials and rub down, spray down, wash down, change clothes, whatever it was, every day at every stand. I said, you've never hunted in Texas where you make 16 to 20 stands a day. You know, they want me to cover my seat. They want me to do all these kinds of things. And I tell them specifically, if it takes that much effort to kill a coyote, I don't want to do it. But they make a legitimate product. And for the person that wants to go to that degree and wants to go to that effort, the products work for you. There's that personal formula that you put together to be successful.
Well, and it may confuse a few that, you know, they might not be as bright as the next one or may not care. You know, it might make them think you were there 3 hours ago like that oil field worker was instead of being there right now. I don't use it. I use the wind. I'm a plumber by trade. Besides this, I do plumbing and I work cattle, so you know what I smell like most of the time. I don't have time. I mean, we hunt. I have a real job, and I have cattle also, and we have a lot of animals around the place, so I do all that. And then I hunt 200 days a year. So I come in, if I got an hour and a half, 2 hours left of daylight, I'm going hunting. And my goal is to kill something as quick as I can or have fun and get back home. I don't want to take 14 baths a day to be able to do that. So cover scent is never, I've used it, I've tried it, I've experimented with it, and to some degree I believe that it helps, but not enough to make it worth my time doing it. But I know people that swear by it and use it every day. And it's kind of like, there was something asked earlier on the pig panel, I can't remember what it was. Oh, what type of dog do you use for this or that? It all boils down to how many of you like Chevrolets and how many of you like Fords. Ford guy swears that his Ford's going to outrun a Chevrolet, and guys that drive Chevrolets like myself know that we wind up pulling them Fords home.
What's a Chevrolet?
Any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
It's one for.
I'm going to tell you,
That's worse than cover scent.
We have the world calling competition coming up, so we're going to run out of time on this, I can assure you. Again, I'm going to let these guys answer that. But
Can
we
I
do
answer
need
that
to
one
wrap it up.
first? Let me
Yes,
go
sir.
first before these white light guys get in here.
She said go down the line and say red, white, red, white.
There you go.
White.
I just listen to Jeff because he knows what he's talking about.
White.
White. White.
White, red.
White, with
White.
condition.
Just white.
That amazes me sitting on this panel hearing white that much.
You know, and I will say this, guy. I was explaining something to somebody earlier about this very subject, and I think this might be a quick, easy way to explain this. When we first started hunting years ago, there wasn't dimmer switches on lights. So there was a lot of guys using the white lights and having limited success. When they started putting the red lens on there, their success went up, so they equated that to that red color. So automatically they thought it was that red color. When actually, after several of us guys do a lot of night hunting, done a lot of it through the years, we've done a lot of experimenting, and with newer technology, we've got these dimmer switches. And if you come to that night deal tonight, we'll kind of demonstrate some of that. But I think that red lens, what it did, it cut down that harshness of that light to where the guy's success went up. A lot of guys deduced that it was the red color. I don't really believe that. I'm convinced it was the harshness of that light was cut down with that red lens to where their success went up. So us guys, most of these guys, it's not a fair example because most of these guys up here film. And obviously you can film probably better with a white light versus a red light. So we like white light. So since we've got the dimmers, since you can take that harshness down and use less light and then kind of use that dimmer switch or that rheostat to kind of turn that light up. A lot of times when you hit a coyote out there at 300 yards with a million candle power real quick, or say 500-600 yards, it really doesn't spook him that bad. You get that coyote at 100 yards and you hit him with 100 or a million candle power, it's going to really spook him. So the difference is the harshness of that light. If he's out there 500 yards and you have a really dim light on him, he's not really spooky. As he's coming in, you can turn the harshness or the brightness of that light up, and his eyes have time to, they're dilated really big because it's dark. As you bring that light up, his pupils contract real slow, and it really doesn't spook him so bad. So that's the reason I say white with a condition. If you don't have a dimmer switch on there, you might do better with a red lens. I personally like the white.
I respect Byron South immensely, but I respect the scientists and the zoologists that use red light for nocturnal animals in zoos. Ever gone into one of those real dark houses and the only light in the cage is a red light and that little marsupial comes out or that bat or whatever, they're coming out in that red light because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't bother them. Maybe it's because it's not as bright as white light, but that's the way we started out in the 60s, early 60s. Dad and I started out with white light. And then they saw more and more research about nocturnal animals, and we went to red, flip lenses and all that stuff back in the 60s. And I do it both ways. I think white light tends to make the shadows dance better, more prominently. I think shadows scare animals a lot easier, and maybe a dimmer red light causes a less intense shadow to dance. So who's right?
I wouldn't disagree with that. Now, if you're hunting at night, the guy that's running that light is very important. If you're jerking that light around, you're going to spook a lot of animals. So it really matters.
It depends on the intensity. When I'm using red, I still don't go to a real bright light until we're ready for the kill, because you can make an animal. They tend not to turn away from you as much on red. It could be blue. It could be green. A lot of guys are going to the green light now, finding out that works as good as red. I don't know enough about what they see in the color spectrum to tell you scientifically if that's true or not. I'm a big red light advocate, but I do it both ways. Under certain conditions, I think one is better than the other. Obviously, for these guys in videotaping, white light's the best way to go to get the best footage, the best film. And obviously, by looking at their videos, they get tons of coyotes and cats up to white light.
Ken, how many light people are here how many lights are being sold here today?
I'd have to say there's got to be 10 or 15 companies here.
Isn't that amazing how the light technology's come so far?
Absolutely. And every one of these companies pretty much have a lens cover or an LED.
We got a new light over here that was really cool I was looking at and stuff,
Yeah.
but I got to give a shout out to Light Force. They're our
Yep.
boys. We like
Absolutely.
Light Force.
And if you really want to see some cool demos tonight, I highly recommend this 5-minute walk across the river. You'll get to see Light Force in action. A lot of these guys use their products. They use their optics. And you'll get to see hands-on how and why these guys use these products. And you will see live animals staked out there. And not that it's going to affect a goat, but you will be able to see how they use these in unison to hunt their animals at night. We're running out of time. We have the World Predator Calling Competition in the Bosque Theater. Great questions. I appreciate everybody's participation. I appreciate your questions. I appreciate the panel. Thank y'all very much.